Okay, I'd like to open it up to questions first because I know there's a lot going on. As I say on the radio show, it's a fast-moving news day. Today is, it has been for the last several weeks. And if you think that these days, in the last 72 hours, last 4 or 5 days have been fast, hold on to your seat, make sure your seat belts are on and you have your hands in the 10 and 2 position because you ain't seen nothing yet about news and information that's going to be coming at you. So questions first. The young man, where is he? Can I ask a question about the elections? Where is he? Okay, ask a question loudly and I'll see if I can answer. It's kind of like spin the bottle thing. You have a question?
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to see them allowing Trump to get in there and take back the system that they've been fighting.
Let me tell you what my resources have told me about this, okay, so I can kind of clarify it with you. First of all, and I can say this because many of you know the type of characters I hang out with nowadays. One guy, I don't even know his name, and I've been talking to him, and he's an asset inside the government, I know that. He's never been wrong. In fact, I have 5 that I depend upon that have never been wrong about anything, except for Comey. And I'll explain that, because I was really embarrassed. I'm on the radio talking about how Comey's going to issue, an arrest warrant and all this stuff, or, a criminal complaint and all this stuff. And I said, he's going to do this. I think I came to you guys and said, he's going to do this. This is what's going to happen. And instead it was like one of your kiss your sisters things with Comey, right? And so I was embarrassed. These guys have never been wrong. And so when I talked to them last week, they said, well, we're not wrong. What'd you expect them to do? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he didn't give the complaint, but he certainly didn't lie about her lying. Get it?
Yeah.
So it became political in that realm. Whether or not she will ultimately get a criminal complaint, I'll give you my thoughts on that. My understanding, my understanding is that they're banking on, okay, this is what they told me. There's an agreement between Trump and Comey. A handshake agreement. You can look at my website. I've got several stories there. One of them is followed up by Dr. Jim Garrow and his statement about that. Dr. Jim Garrow is a former CIA asset. And he's been here at the Liberty Tour and all that stuff, and we're quite close friends. He's not one of my 5, but he's not a bad one to ask these questions of. But he wrote an article that followed up an article that I had gotten, so obviously in intelligence circles this is all going around. But there is an agreement between Trump and Comey, and they plan on getting Hillary after the election, after Obama's out of office. And also, if you listen carefully to Comey's press conference, or presser, if you will. It really wasn't a press conference because he took no questions, if you noticed. He came out and said, I'm giving you an update on where we are in the investigation of Hillary Clinton and the emails. It was not a definitive statement. It was not a definitive facts in terms of how they're going to behave going forward. You see, because they are investigating at the same time the Clinton Foundation. And if you listen to my radio show, I always go back to the Clinton Foundation because of Uranium One, Harney County, the Bundys situation up there. Remember Lavoy Finicum and the murder of Lavoy Finicum by the president, Valerie Jarrett and David Axelrod from Central Command Authority. Central Command Authority being in the White House, we just had the sheriffs here, in which they actually took federal control over the sheriffs. The sheriffs of, I don't know if it was Harney County, it was Deschutes County, I think, sheriffs, and also the Oregon State Police in the murder of Lavoy Finicum, working with so-called FBI agents. That was all controlled by the White House and Central Command Authority. We know that because we happened to get the emails that were going between Kate Brown, the governor, and Valerie Jarrett in the White House. We petitioned through FOIA. Red Smith did this. We petitioned through the FOIA, and we got those emails, and it completely tells the story, and that's why we wrote the story, about what happened with Lavoy Finicum and the wanton murder of Lavoy Finicum. And it's coming from what's called Central Command Authority out of the White House. Now, Central Command Authority is what we're putting these pieces of the puzzle together, and the pieces of the puzzle go to Dallas, and they also go to Louisiana, and I'll throw this at you so that you understand where this is coming from. All these police activities are part of the war schedule that they have to destroy America. And you guessed it, I don't think we can hide it any longer. I think it's just pretty obvious. Now, I'll give you some connect the dots so you get this. When the thing went down in Dallas, first of all, it was a White Lives Matter protest, march. No permit for it. I'm sorry. Hey, Black Lives Matter.
You're right.
You're right. Anyway, so this Black Lives Matter march was completely peaceful. The police were respectful. And of course, they have the community policing program in Dallas. It's a really good program, the way they've done it. And by the way, community policing predates Obama. A lot of communities have done community policing. I think it's healthy. I've been in school districts where we have community policing. It works really, really well to break up gangsters and that sort of thing. Because you can't get the whole gangster thing. But what happened in this situation in Dallas was the Black Lives Matter parade, if you will, or protest was led down several streets through Main Street and then ultimately into a side street. And that's where they were starting to break up. And it turned out when it was breaking up, a lot of officers were going to be concentrated in that area. And it turned out that as they were turning the corner and coming down the street, a high concentration of officers were there, but it was a perfect L-shaped ambush. And there were a number of shooters, not one. And I think everybody who listened to the gunfire, witnessed the hours of videotape and so on, could clearly see there's more than one. Our assets told us there was clearly more than one. So my people told me there were 4 shooters, 4 people in operation that night. Now, they'd come up with one, Chief David Brown. I love this guy because he has not allowed the feds in, like in Orlando, to interfere. Have you noticed that? The only thing we do not know, well, we do know that the gun that was used was an SKS rifle, which is the predated gun before the AK-47. It fires the same rounds, which is kind of an odd gun, at least that one shooter had. How do you like the way they killed the guy? Did you hear about that? They brought in the robot, and they had C4 on it, and they blew him up. I mean, I'm sorry, I gotta have some humor in this. They just blew them up. I mean, I guess they were done asking questions. Anyway, but anyway, so they took care of him, but other people got away, is what we were told, and some people may have never fired a shot, but there were at least 4 actors involved in the situation. I'm going to go to now. Keep in mind, this guy was trained by the Army. He was practicing on his own. He was associated with the Louis Farrakhan group. Black Lives Matter, got it right there, didn't I? Black Lives Matter, and other groups. He also claims to have an Islamic name. Well, of course, we're not going to start using our liberal imagination here and say, oh, he wasn't anything to do with Islam or the Muslim Brotherhood or anything like that. Of course, where did he get the weaponry? And he got a whole lot of weaponry. Okay, now let's fast forward to what happened here yesterday, Sunday. You have an individual who's a former Marine, highly trained, really armored up, and has very sophisticated weapons. He's got 2 long guns and a 9mm. In fact, I've got the exact copy of that 9mm myself on his person. And the one gun that he had was an Israeli-made 5.56 round gun. The other gun that he had in his car, ready to go, all loaded, was an AR style. Loaded 5.56 barrel. So that's what he was shooting. So the gun that he had was a very sophisticated gun, and I can't remember which was the call of it is, but there's pictures of it now out. Thank goodness they're allowing these pictures out, because if you go to Orlando, remember the complete debacle about Orlando. Loretta Lynch would not allow the 911 documents or tapes or recordings out without being redacted. Now, what's that up? What's up with that? You know, they're lying because they didn't want everybody to know how close this guy was to Islam. Well, he sat there for 2.5 hours, you know, calling every radio station and every police department that would get a recording talking about Allah and how he's with ISIS and so on. But the administration was suppressing that. So we got no evidence about basically what it was because the feds came in right away. Did you notice that? They came right in, took all the evidence away from, and put the hammer down that the police department could not be transparent. One of the things that they were not transparent about was the weapon that was used. 3 weapons showed up on the West Coast at the same time, the same night, in Santa Monica. In another car, a guy drove from Indiana. He had about 20 pounds of explosives with him, and he was going to blow up a gay pride parade with 2 other actors. The weapons that we understand that were in the car were Sig Sauer's MCX weapons. Anybody have heard of those? There's a few people in here have heard of those. Full auto. These are some of the most sophisticated automatic weapons known now. And the Department of Homeland Security has an abundance of them. The weapon that was used in Orlando, guess what? Was a Sig Sauer MCX. This guy had been trained as a security guy working with DHS and Homeland Security in this weapon. There was no purchase that we know of by a gun store for this weapon. What was wanting to be purchased at a gun store was full body armor. And the gun store owner doesn't handle that, but he's a former military guy, and he got suspicious, and he called up the FBI. They had video of this guy, and the FBI said, oh, we just can't make out who that is.
No threat. Yeah.
In my opinion, the FBI was dirty, and I've said this before, there's good FBI and there's bad FBI. They were acting on behalf of Loretta Lynch, and they were covering up the evidence and suppressing the evidence, which they still are today. But it's a full auto. It fires the black something around that's easily penetratable into armor. And they were talking about, you know, the guy could fire into a crowd of people and easily kill 7 or 8 people with 1 round. Yes, sir?
What are we going to do about communist Red China and asking my reporters? What are we going to do about them?
You mean down south?
Yeah, I guess they're matching in Mexico or something.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to fire what they're doing.
Let me finish all this stuff first, and I'll get to that question. So this is the state of affairs that we're dealing with, and Donald Trump knows all this stuff. He's not a stupid man. He's not a stupid man. He also knows about Scott Bennett. And those of you that know who I'm talking about, Scott Bennett is a very good friend of mine now. He's a former asset, if you will. You can pick up his book or check it out on Shell Game. You can go to our website and look at the video that we did at the Liberty Tour, 48 minutes of him. He was a former anti-terrorist finance guy who was responsible in the Army in the psychological operations outfit for about 10 years, worked for the Bush administration, worked for the State Department. He is a guy with another guy by the name of Brad Birkenfeld that broke the whole thing open about terror financing, that it was Hillary Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama that was funding ISIS. They formed ISIS with the funds and the weaponry that was purchased with that funds that went through Benghazi. That's the reason why Benghazi happened. Because it was basically Al-Qaeda from the Islamic Maghreb that was attacking at Benghazi. See the movie 13 Hours, you'll get the whole drift about how this whole thing played out. They were wanting the weapons, and it was the administration that was going to give them the weapons so that they could ship those weapons off to Syria and put them in the hands of ISIS. That was in 2012, and look at the havoc, and look at the migrations that have happened with millions of human beings going into Europe and now coming over here, most of them radicalized coming over here. That's part of the plan to change the demographics of America. That's part of it. You're witnessing right now, maybe you're not seeing it, but it's here, the largest human migration ever in mankind's history going on around the planet. This has all been orchestrated by the Muslim Brotherhood. I hate to say it, the Catholic Church is deeply involved, especially through this Pope. They're heavily involved, and they're all orchestrating this behind the scenes. Of course, this is all part of the plan for the one world order. They want to demographically change America in particular. And Protestants need not apply in America. You see, it's been this Constitution in this country that has stopped these invaders from the past. And if they destroy the Constitution, then they figure that they've got one up on everybody, and they'll replace every Protestant. That's why the churches have been under so much attack recently and so on. We have to kind of wake up on that. Okay, I've heard these stories about the Chinese massing at the border. I've heard a lot of stories about various groups massing at the border. I'm more concerned not about the ones that might be massing at the borders, but the ones that are here currently, especially in California. The hundreds of thousands of them that are surrounding the port of Stockton and the port of Sacramento. Now let's think about that. Now, is he in here? There's a person in here. I'm not, can I tell the story? Okay. A source came to me. A source came to me and had this story. So this will kind of tell you, they're not around us, they're in with us. So wake up. There are certain places in this state you can go in the northern tiers around here. And if you listen to AM radio enough, and of course these people are so desperate to listen to Agenda 21 radio, they're out in the middle of the boondocks listening to Agenda 21 radio. And when it gets to a certain hour of the day, all of a sudden, the show goes off and Chinese comes on for hours. Now that isn't just one incident that I've heard about. These are numerous incidences all around. So they figured out they're here. Now, the other part of being here is owning property. And Dianne Feinstein's husband, what's his name? What's his name?
Trader.
Blum, Richard Blum, thank you. I've said Blum so many times. Richard Blum is one of the world's largest finance brokers, and he brokers property for the Bank of China. And the Bank of China has been buying up land in the San Joaquin Valley. You know, we have this drought. That's a man-made drought. Pretty soon that drought's going to go away, and the Chinese are going to come in and start farming. When you look for the brand new blue and green piping, the big 1-inch pipes that are along the roads down there, if you go down I-5, the drought will end and the Chinese will start farming. Bingo. That's what they'll do. They'll start farming again. They'll look, they'll protect the water, because right now, if you notice, that everything's being flooded out, right? They're draining Oroville, they're draining Shasta, because the drought has to continue. Get it? Mm-hmm. Yes, Tom, you have a question? No, you didn't have a question. Any other more questions? Any more questions? Okay, Tom has a question. Really? See, I'm psychic. Go ahead, Tom.
So who would you make out the other 3 shooters to be in Dallas?
Well, one of the shooters was in Louisiana yesterday, because he's been positively identified as being in Dallas in the Black Lives Matter march. We just have to wait for more information on the other 2. But we will get the information. We always do. We always track it down. People track it down. But these guys are trained assassins. And you may remember 2 years ago, I've said this before, it was July of 2014. My sources were telling me the ways in which they're going to come in and destroy America and disrupt America through assassination squads. I recommended then, I recommend now, that every American have access legally to a handgun and a long gun. Every American. Every American. That means everybody in this room. Because you never know when these things are going to start happening around you. Because they're going to do everything that they can do to destroy us. That's just the nature of the game. And the president is all in on this. The whole administration, and the corruption runs deep. And getting back to the question about Trump, there is an assassination hit on him prepared already. They're trying to take him out. And I know that. Yeah, you think? Yeah. No, if I know about it,
He
he knows about it.
Yeah.
And that's something that they constantly have to be aware of. But that's something that's real. I'm telling you from my sources, these sources are the real deal, who've been out in the field, who did these kind of things, and that's what they've told me. Yes, ma'am. Any information about what's happening at the convention or going to happen at the convention? No, Donald Trump's wife, I just got a little text here that she spoke at the convention. Donald Trump's wife spoke at the convention tonight. So, but you know, what's going to happen with Black Lives Matter? Yes, I can tell you some things. Let me kind of give you a little clue in case you want to follow along with the bouncing ball at the convention. You can go on the internet and you can get the radio broadcast from the sheriff and police in Cleveland. And you can listen and monitor what's going on. And wow, was it really exciting this afternoon, but the mainstream media didn't say diddly do about it. Yes, ma'am, you have something? Dorothy has something. You have? Oh, okay. Can I finish this thought? Okay, well, thank you. Anyway, if you listen, there were a number of things that were happening today, probative in nature by the Black Lives Matter people. Now, let's not kid anybody. Black Lives Matter, they're anarchists, they're communists, they're Nazis, whatever you want to call them, but they're all paid by George Soros. Now, we just put up a story that I got permission to put up this morning that really breaks it down about George Soros and the funding for all these groups. George Soros, of course, is one of the puppet masters of Barack Hussein Obama and Valerie Jarrett. So you can get that connection. This is all being worked out in sync with National Command Authority in the White House. Get it? This is where it's going. This is how it's being controlled. And they're not even making any excuses about it. This is just what's happening. Have you noticed these totalitarians are just out in front just telling you what's going to happen? I mean, Obama, has he really apologized for anything with the police?
No.
No, he just rubs it in their faces. You know, so anyway, probative in nature in that they spent most of the day going to different places around the perimeter of this is the Black Lives Matter people, in probing the defenses, if you will, of the police. That's today. Will something happen? Yes, something's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen yet. But I'm telling you, when they're starting to probe, these are sophisticated soldiers. Let's not make any mistake of it. These just aren't rioters out there. When you're going out and you see the defensive screen that they've got set up there, and you're going to probe the defenses and create, havoc in different places on one day, guess what? They're going to do something the next or the next day after that. They're putting together their plan. So something will happen unless the police can act and do something to stop it. And I know that the police, I believe that the police there in Cleveland are doing an outstanding job. And they brought in police from all over the country to help them out. So they've got some pretty good assets there. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm new to the area. What is your radio show?
You mean you haven't heard?
No, I listen to InfoWars, Alex Jones.
No, Alex is okay. I'm better.
I've known Alex for 25 years. I used to live in Hudson County. I lived in Ruby Ridge House.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really old. But I was just wondering, what
Agenda 21 radio. Right.
channel is the AM?
AM, it's actually all of them, but AM here, 1410 AM, 7 to 10. And when we get done here in a few minutes, you can go out in the car and listen to me at 9 o'clock, 9 to 10. But also, the website is agenda21radio.news. And we have all the things like Alex Jones has, YouTube and all that stuff to connect it. But our show goes out pretty much live at 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time. And we actually get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and get the show done and package it off to the East Coast feed at that time. And you can listen to it on TalkStream Live or Red State Talk Radio. And we're the number 8 top talk radio on TalkStream Live out of 85 top talkers. So we're pretty happy about that.
Did you ever used to listen to Dr. Stan on TV before he passed away?
Yes.
Or Bob Chapman?
Yes, I've heard of them. Yeah, there's a whole list of, these are some precursors to the new stream media. And by the way, welcome to the new stream media, because we're giving you more tonight than what you're going to get from any mainstream media. You know, it's really great. Fox News, congratulations to Fox News. They finally came out 3 weeks ago, and they finally said that Benghazi was really nothing more than an attack to get all the weapons together and send them to ISIS in Syria. I thought, my God. Fox News. Hey, what, 2.5, 3 years late? That's okay, right? See, and they called me crazy. They called me and listen, by the way, I'm proud to be a tinfoil hat thinker, as opposed to a non-thinker, which is what they want you to be, right? When they make fun of guys like me as tinfoil hat thinkers, I don't take it personally, I take it with pride. And all of you should too. Think outside the box, which is what I'm talking about. Yes,
The last thing I was going to say is, as you mentioned,
I just gave you an extra one.
prayer really does work, and they've been after Trump, and they've already tried to assassinate him, and everybody, when they wake up in the morning, has to put a shield on him, and they have to pray for him, because America needs a strong leader.
Right.
We might be waking up, or we might be, coming out of our falls and all of that, but this guy, we need him now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we can't let them take him out.
No, and there's a lot of ways in which they've been trying to take him out, even with Ted Cruz today trying to take him out, and that whole thing that happened. And that was really kind of nothing, but we recognized this a long time ago about Donald Trump, because if you notice, the one time, which really should have caught a lot of people's attention, but people don't understand the one world order stuff, like Alex Jones would talk about, the Bilderbergs and so on, and how these people control everything. But people should have really got a clue about Donald Trump when he bee-slapped the Pope. When the Pope made disparaging remarks about an American candidate, which should never happen from a Pope, by the way. This Pope is a Jesuit Pope. He's part of the Christian Democratic Party, which is out of Argentina, a known communist, fascist, Nazi group. He was given a large crucifix by the Bolivian president on a hammer and sickle. Hello? That should be your clue number one. But, as you go back and look at his history about being brought in as the Pope, and again, this is not about the Catholic religion per se, especially here in the United States. We're Catholics. My family's Catholic. I've got a Catholic name. That whole 9 yards. It's a different world with these guys. They're monsters. They're not religious people at all, and that's what we have here with this Pope. If the Pope is aligning himself 100% behind President Barack Hussein Obama and his policies, you know what we call that? We call that a clue. We call it a clue that he might be in on the one world order business, and he is.
That's the one thing, this is my last thing I swear. But this is the thing that people need to understand. They have to understand that this is a satanic,
Correct.
This is a struggle between good people. What's the we struggle not against forces of blood, but about everything.
Well, we got that one out.
That's the main problem with America, is you have to realize the ending. If you hear the quote that Trump put out called the snake,
Yes.
that's an insult.
Okay, let me clarify. I'm going to cut to the chase and cut through this. This is a religious war. It is a religious war. It is not a conventional war. And we as Americans, for so long, with other religiosity that we've had over the last 200 years, we've been disconnected from, especially in the sense of European religions like Islam and the Catholic faith as being taught by the Pope and his strain. Because you've got to go back and look at history to understand what's affecting us today with this form of religious evil and persecution that's coming our way with Islam and the Catholic Church, the Pope in particular. And again, I'm not trying to offend Catholics, please. But you understand, this is European, this is old. And the biggest thing with the Catholic Church and the Muslims in particular, if you go back and look at this, around 1492, when Columbus came across, all of a sudden you had Martin Luther putting up the tablets on 1511, and by 1540 you had the Reformation running rampant, which was throwing off the cloak of the Pope. Well, they formed the Jesuits in 1540, and then they started burning Christians. non-Catholic Christians. So the Reformation was taking place and Christians were being burned at the stake, and this was all throughout Europe. Where did they escape to? The New World. They came to the United States and they formed a constitution. Look at the 56 founders of the Constitution. All but one are Protestants. The only other one is a Catholic. I think, no, there's one Catholic, I know. For the most part, the rest of them were Protestants. Yes, sir.
Hey, on the cell phone, there's a program that's called Scanner Radio Pro. You look that up on Google or Play Store. This program will give you every single law agency throughout the entire world.
Right.
And you can plug into it and you can listen to your heart's content. And it's absolutely free.
Well, which brings me to something else that came up tonight with the sheriffs, and I'll kind of explain some things they probably couldn't do in a world view and a world perspective because they were kind of struggling with it because of their positions. But their interaction with the federal government is truthful. And the federal government, if you're thinking that the federal government is going to try and seize our guns, you're absolutely correct. They're going to try. They're going to try and do a number of things, even if they fall really, really short. The first thing that they want to do to control us is to seize our guns, but there's some big logistical problems with that. They're going to have to get all the law enforcement agencies, from local sheriffs to local police, all the way up to state troopers and even National Guard to complete this. As far as I know right now, the police generally in this country are not on very good relationships with the president. Wouldn't you agree? So I think they're watching, and this is why I say, if you listen to my radio show, they have completely overplayed their hand on this. All totalitarians do this. And we have, by the grace of God, a Constitution, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, that allows us to listen, to talk, and still we can do all this. And by the way, what do we do in this country when our Second Amendment is being threatened? We just go out and buy more guns. Hello? I mean, look at all the guns that this president has allowed people to buy. He's the greatest salesman in the world for guns. And we've armed ourselves to the teeth and continuing to do so.
40,000 a day.
Yeah, it's crazy what's going on. I heard 57,000 one day and 40,000, a day. I guess as Danielle Stiller, you can't even get ARs right now. They're just off. But we can absorb this and look at it and say, okay, how can we adjust to this and how can we learn? And what's happening now is they've overplayed their hands because they're desperate. And you're starting to see some of their desperation play out like you saw in France. Now you see it in Turkey. Burger-Rome, by the way, if you don't know, the first person, now this is what I don't know if this happens every day, but I've been told by my sources that the first person, I'm being told to wind it up, so we've got another 30 minutes to go here.
No.
The first person that President Barack Hussein Obama calls every morning is Erdogan, the president of Turkey.
Huh.
You see, he sees himself as the Grand Caliph.
Muslim
The Grand
Brotherhood.
Caliph who's in charge, and he's supposed to be taking over the worldwide caliphate.
Muslim Brotherhood.
Muslim Brotherhood. He's working closely with Obama. And by the way, anybody served in Turkey in Iraq? Anybody served there in the Air Force? One person? Okay. They have right now in question, I know there's 1,500 servicemen there being kept semi-prisoner by Erdogan.
Yes, sir. Look.
They also have about 50 M61 nuclear bombs on base. So those are pretty big bombs. And there's big concern, and Stratfor and some of the other military people, and I've talked to Chris Street and some other people over the last several days, we ran an article on this. And this actually came out the night of the coup attempt, which by the way was a fake coup. It was a fake coup to round up the usual suspects, and they've rounded up about 10 or 11,000 people now. They're all going to be killed. And it's going to put him in a position. So, see, Erdogan, he became president of Turkey in 2002. And, what's his name? Ataturk, after World War II, came up with a secular society in Turkey. So all religions were equal in Turkey. Islam did not have any greater authority over anybody else. But it's been Erdogan who has been bringing this back, the Muslim Brotherhood working with them to create the Grand Caliph, or the Caliphate, starting with Turkey and the rest of the world. And that's what Obama's trying to impose on us right now through Sharia law and everything else he's been doing. We're supposed to be part of that Grand Caliph, Erdogan's Grand Caliphate for the world and the Islamic takeover. Does that make sense? That's the bigger picture. But they're being opposed by a number of different things. But my point is this, in the near term, they're not going to be successful at getting our weapons. They're not being successful at shutting us down from our internet. I'll be damned, I've been hacked in my website more in the last year than I've ever seen before. It just wiped us out actually about a month and a half ago. And we went to a completely different operating system at great expense, but they haven't shut us down. In fact, we're just blowing up right now. We're getting bigger at Agenda 21 Radio and American Exceptionalism News Network. We're growing. And that's the worst thing in the world for them. That's a nightmare. And I'll tell you what, you're going to see coming from our radio show and from other sources, you're going to see the outing of everything that happened in the murder of Lavoy Finnegan.
Yeah.
Everything. Any last questions before they really toss me out? Yeah.
Let's go back to the one about, have your sources told you that Trump's scripting assassinated?
You know, I can't say that.
Okay.
But I do know that Hillary's not necessarily a sure thing. And this has become very problematic with the Democratic Party. And there's more to come out about Hillary. WikiLeaks has a whole bunch of stuff coming out. That they've already started. They came out with some emails last week about 10,000, about another 70,000 have come out. So there's going to be more data coming out of her. Plus, the other part of the investigation is still going on. By the way, the State Department relaunched a criminal investigation into Hillary. At the same time, Comey was testifying. I don't know if you heard that or not. So politics are changing in Washington, D.C. And prayer works.
You said Trump was going to go after her. Did that imply that Trump thought he was going to wait and go after her?
The implication is that as the big picture of politics are, as you go through these cycles in American politics, a Republican will win, should win, and it looks like Trump will be that person. And the agreement that Comey came up with him was that they would go after Hillary and also the Clinton Foundation. Because I really think they have a stronger case and they really want the Clinton Foundation because that implicates a whole bunch of people that are into the Muslim Brotherhood and also into the cartels. You know these cartels that are growing all this marijuana up here? They money launder everything through Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. Just a little clue. That's what's happening around here. That's why Jerry Brown and everybody's so into it. Oh, and Jerry Brown, we have stories about him too, and his dad. So anyway, you're going to get this information. It's going to come out soon. Yes, sir. Last question, then we're going.
You know what Bill do? Go to Energizer, Bill Clinton, and you see what Bill do.
Energizer?
Energizer, Bill Clinton, and the lady that he has now while Hillary on the command campaign trail.
Yeah, this is the Tea Party. And by the way, listen, I didn't give you guys a formal welcome in front of the sheriff, and welcome all you domestic terrorists. Did you know that you're domestic terrorists? Give yourselves a round of applause for being domestic terrorists. Did you know that? There's Joe back there, he's smiling, he's like, what? But this is still true. This is still true. It was Janet Napolitano when she first got on board with the president in 2009 and declared Tea Parties and veterans as domestic terrorists, and it still stands. Yet, Black Lives Matter, which gets invited to the White House, which is known to be assassinating our police department, now are not domestic terrorists. That's called another clue.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much, and listen to the show.